And I wanted to talk about these two terms, limerence and betrayal blindness, that really just opened my world. They are almost like keys that have unlocked a different level of understanding and awareness in my personal growth and how I approach relationships and how I see people. And so I kind of just wanted to talk about those today. So let's start with when I started doing my research on narcissism and these behaviors that I thought I knew about. I kept seeing this term limerence, and it is very common in narcissistic people, but also people who have anxious attachment styles. And that is definitely more where I tend to lean. So, limerence is defined as a psychological state of intense infatuation or romantic desire for someone, often characterized by obsession or obsessive qualities. And it can be irrational or intrusive thoughts, involuntary, like you're always obsessing about the person. People who experience limerence are often not even connected to the people that they're having this object of obsession or infatuation with. And while I wasn't there were still elements of limerence, such as making these fantasies up in my mind, like projecting hopeful outcomes. Like I believe the best in people, and I can always see the beauty in others. But we are not just all one thing or another, right? We're complex. We people have lots of sides, like an onion with many layers, right? But the truth is, I have a tendency to hyper focus on the positive aspects rather than seeing the complete picture. And that's when this term limerence really kind of stuck with me when I was reading the definition, building up these ideas about a person, placing them on a pedestal, focusing only on their good qualities rather than the complexity and full picture that I haven't been able to see yet. So it's got this hope element that really is where it manifested and sparked my interest in learning more about this term. So over the course of this past year, there was a few different times where I would meet someone and we'd have a great connection, and the chemistry was really good, physical aside, just whether that's the conversation or shared interests or beliefs. And as I would start to invest in them and get to know them over the first few weeks, I would notice that there was a strong, intense urge to develop romantic feelings for them. And of course, it takes time to get to know someone, but I am a romantic. I've always felt that way. Like I love love, right? And I do believe that, we have these amazing soul connections out there, whether there's just one or many, I believe many, over a lifetime. But I was finding that I would bond or want to bond quicker than is normal or typical, right? It takes time to get to know someone. It takes time to hear and see their behaviors and who they really are. I noticed the thoughts of projecting fantasies or traits onto people, ideas of what this relationship could be, playing out these like potential futures with someone, which is, I think, a good thing because the point of a relationship is to build towards something with someone. But again, there's got to be that organic period of allowing for the relationship to develop. These projected expectations, false expectations often, are really detrimental to seeing the reality and to keeping ourselves safe and guarded or in a position to really have our needs met, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. I would meet someone, but I would again start projecting these thoughts and traits onto people that they necessarily didn't show or portray or possess. And I had to examine why I am looking and projecting all of these qualities onto people when they haven't shown them yet or they haven't proven that's who they are. So it was a really interesting jumping off point where I started to question like my behavior, how I'm showing up in these relationships and these encounters with other people, and it kind of took me back. And now the second term, betrayal blindness, was popping up just as much as the limerence. And so that's how spirit gets our attention. That's when we resonate, like our subconscious is like, something's up here. I start doing the research on this, and it's a term that was coined by the psychologist Jennifer Freed. So, in her research, she was dealing with people who went through really intense, traumatic experiences, like, abusive situations, chronic cheaters, these experiences where they would literally, as she describes it, whoosh the experience away. This interesting psychological phenomenon where people would literally ignore these betrayals, these really intense, awful things that are happening to them. And she wondered why. How can people do that? How can this person's mind literally just act like it's not happening? And what she eventually suggests is there's an evolutionary point to all this, because we are social creatures and we are dependent on others, especially at the early stages of our life. We need our parents. And when a parent is abusive, or whether that emotionally, physically, we still need them. And so the survival mechanism our mind employs is to pretend it's not there, because we need that attachment, that social attachment, to this person who is caring for us. And that translates obviously differently when we become adults and we develop relationships with people, whether, again, it could be a narcissist or just these emotionally unhealthy and meshed relationships where we feel dependent or enmeshed with someone else, and those boundaries of sovereignty and self-identity are blurred. What got me, where I identified, she was talking about one particular case where a woman was noticing her husband was distant. He was a chronic, like, cheater, that type of person. Like, he was always stepping out behind her back. And again, subconsciously, she probably knew that, but she was ignoring it. And so there was one night she's like, you know what, I'm going to meet, he doesn't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go meet him after work. He goes to a bar after work, and I'm gonna get dressed up and I'll go and I'll meet him there and surprise him, right? And she does this. She gets all nice and gussied up, and then she goes and she waits for him. And as he walks in the door, he immediately comes in the door and sees this other woman and starts passionately kissing her. And she went up to confront him, and he literally gaslights her. He's like, I don't know her. She thought she knew me. Typical narcissist behavior. And she was telling the psychologist that there was literally a moment where it was like, whoosh. She just ignored it. She just let it go, and she bought into that. She gaslit herself into believing that the situation wasn't what it was, even though she knew, because she would have to confront the reality that her life is not what she wants it to be. It's not as safe, or it's not the reality she has come to know and find comfort in. And that happens with, I think, religious trauma. You see people in these religious cultures that just allow these atrocities half the time, this manipulation, the shame, the guilt to happen, and they go along with it because if they were to confront that, again, on an evolutionary perspective, they would have to confront an entirely different reality, which can be jarring. It can be really intensely destabilizing, in essence, right? We can't do the work. We can't help others unless they're ready to help themselves. The teacher can give you the information, but you can't lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. It's that kind of situation. So understanding where we are betraying ourselves, gaslighting ourselves, buying into a reality because it's more comfortable, or because we're afraid of the unknown, or because we are unwilling to endure, which, again, there's a lot of reasons that we all come from different experiences, different situations, and sometimes that can be, quite frankly, you're dependent on someone, whether that's a partner that has the bank accounts, and which narcissists often employ. There's a lot of control in these kind of dynamics. But for me, when I encountered this previous person, at the beginning of the relationship, there was an experience where there was a reaction. He got uncomfortable, but how he dealt with it is he shut down, and he He ignored me. And we were in a situation with his friends I was meeting for the first time, and he was triggered. And I knew that. And I wanted to be compassionate and understand that, okay, we don't really know each other, but obviously something happened that I'm unaware of, that I'm oblivious to, which between ADHD and just being flighty all the time, that is very real. I take that on. I understand that I can be oblivious to a lot of things that happen, right? So this shift in behavior was palpable. Everyone in the group noticed the tension. He was not talking to me. He wasn't engaging me for the last hour of this experience together. It was a really cold, painful ride home. Like, it was just heavy tension. And I didn't understand why he was acting this way. And he was closed off and didn't want to talk about it. So in that moment, looking back, I knew that he was being emotionally manipulative rather than saying, we'll talk about this later, or let's, something happened, but we'll talk about it, right? I want to talk about it with you. Or I'm angry and I need some space. Rather than communicating, it was almost like he was punishing me, and he was exerting control or dominance of the situation by taking away my power, by not allowing me to have access to him. That was a sign. And this is where the betrayal blindness piece comes in. This is an old behavior that I think I've taken on from my family of origin. When I've had these experiences with my narcissistic parent, I realized they have perpetuated throughout my life. Even though we talked about it that night, he never apologized for the way he behaved that day. He never took ownership. It was very much like, oh, I guess we'll chalk it up to we just don't understand each other and it was really awkward, but let's move forward. It was kind of dismissed and let go. And in that moment, the red flag was being presented to me. In that moment, I kind of whooshed the situation and just let it go because I wanted to continue forward and build this attachment with this person who I saw, Limerence, as a great quality person. He had so much going for him. He's just very driven and generous, and all these things he was showing himself to be. Again, in hindsight, it was a narcissistic situation where he was masking and presenting all this stuff. I had not allowed time for him to really reveal himself. I just bought it, hook, line, and sinker. I went along with it. And that fantasy, the limerence piece, coupled with this betrayal blindness, I just ignored it. I said, let's move on, let's go on. In my mind, I clicked off and I just continued to invest in this person until something happened again, fool me once, and then you walk away. But in noticing this behavior, it really opened my understanding of how I'm operating, how these childhood wounds and survival mechanisms are really still at play in my life now and inhibiting me protecting myself, me showing up for myself in the best way possible. It changed everything. After that experience, it just really brought a lot of curiosity to my whole awareness around the way I approach these relationships, what I take on and how I operate, and where I give too much, where I don't give enough. Just amazing. I'm able to work through a lot of this stuff at a different level, and I'm just so thankful for this whole experience with all these people, because I truly believe our souls come here to learn certain things, certain aspects, and for me, a big one is self-love, for trusting myself, for believing in myself, for owning my part in these dynamics. Because the reality is, we aren't victims unless we allow ourselves to be. So now that I have this understanding, this wisdom, this experience, I'm able to bring light and compassion and love for myself and these wounds that I didn't even realize I was still operating out of. So the whole point of this is to plant some seeds, to spark some interest in maybe some behaviors or patterns you notice in yourself or others. making fantasies or projecting qualities onto people that aren't necessarily there, or overlooking bad behavior when people are overstepping your boundaries or disrespecting you. Just be curious. Everything comes from somewhere, and if it's coming to light now, there's a reason. It's time to explore it because it wants to be healed. So I just want you to know that I love you. And I don't need to project that because I know there's good in all of us and you are worthy, and that sometimes the way to the healing that we need is through grace and giving ourselves compassion. And I want that for you. And I'm hoping that talking about these two terms that have really changed my course can do the same for you. Stay curious, guys.